Do it one more time. So today we're going to be talking about special populations and elevating that content and education in all of our classrooms. And good morning. So I'm Megan Oberman, and I'm here on the PD team speaking with you today about our special populations. So the objectives that we're going to talk about, why it matters. We have 5 pillars of support to identify our special populations of students. We're also going to highlight the impact and discuss effective strategies of support, resources to elevate that learning. And we'll discuss an action plan, and there might be some to-dos and some interests that you'll have after viewing this webinar today. We're going to talk about promoting the equity and inclusion of our special populations of students. We're all familiar with our webinar workshop norms. This is just a quick reminder. Thank you for muting and unmuting. Famous last words of "you're on mute," right? If you want to have your cameras on, we'd love that. And at the end, you'll get the sign-in document where you'll be able to sign in for attendance purposes. So let's start off. Let's kick it off with a quote. Read together and reflect. So what does this quote mean to you? And we're going to reflect here in the chat for this one. A strength-based classroom is a place where students with all sorts of labels come together as equals to form a new type of learning environment, by Thomas Armstrong. So let's take a moment and reflect in the chat on what that quote means to each of us. Clean slate each day. Love that. All students have an equal chance of learning every single day.
Melody
Absolutely.
and Jenny's combination kind of sounds like the 2 rules.
Yep. I agree, for sure. Everyone is unique. Yep, let's celebrate our differences and bring them together so that we can all grow. Excellent. Just a quick reminder, there is a note-taking guide that was shared with you through, and if you'd like to take notes, go ahead and do so. You can make a copy of this, and we will chunk that in the chat so that you can get access to that as well. Essentially, any student, no matter the background, feels welcomed and able to learn together. Absolutely. Talking about student strengths. Everyone can contribute. Oh, I love these. Thanks, Kelly, for dropping that in the chat. There's your link to the note-taking guide. All right, and talking about Pillar 1, which are the foundations of our special populations. So we need to identify, right? Who are the special populations of students? So this morning, if you think of a special pop, go ahead and chunk that idea in the chat for us, and let's see what we can come up with here. Who are the special populations of students? GT, boom. SPED, boom. ESL, yes, correct. And we're going to be looking at 2 more today, 2 more specific populations of students. Yes, Robert got the 4th, and we have 1 more. Any brave souls? Let's find out. All right, we'll find out. Here we go. So in Texas, TEA identifies several special populations of students. So you guys nailed it. Special education students, gifted and talented students, are English learners. Now, this can be called, various districts may sub in, or maybe we've heard different terms. English learners, English language learners, English as a second language. So now we're moving into English learners, so our EL students. Also talking about students with dyslexia, and yes, Kiana got it, at risk, baby. So our at-risk student population. If you're feeling brave, or if you just want to mentally think about what this is, you are defining a specific learning disability that affects reading and language processing, requiring targeted interventions and accommodations to support their literacy development. Emergent bilingual. If you're feeling brave, go ahead and chunk it in the chat. If not, feel free to think about it. And let's see who got it right. These are our students with dyslexia. Next one, students with disabilities who require specialized instruction, accommodations, and support services to access the curriculum and achieve academic success. Any ideas on this one? SPED, special education? Yes, this population is our special education group. Next one, students who demonstrate high potential and exceptional abilities in one or more areas, requiring differentiated instruction to meet their unique learning needs. Yep, in the chat. Good work, team. Gifted and talented students. Students who are learning English as an additional language and require language support services to develop a proficiency in English and access academic content. These are our English learners. Right on. Which must mean our final one. I hope we will all get this one correct. Students who may face challenges such as poverty, homelessness, trauma, or other factors that can impact their academic performance and social emotional well-being. So requiring additional support as well as resources to attend school. This, of course, will be our at-risk student population. One thing we wanted to remind you all on is that students can fit in multiple groups. It's important to remember students can fall into several of these categories that TEA classifies as special population. So now I want us to hop back over to our Jamboard, and we are going to do an independent reflection. So we're on slide 2 now of the Jamboard. Slide 2. Why is it important for me to identify and understand the diverse needs of special populations in my classroom? So the why. What is the importance here? Let me hop over. Saw the giant stop sign. And so on the question for number 2, you'll see quite a few Post-it notes. Go ahead and take over one of those Post-it notes. Ooh, perfect, Kelly, thank you. We'll take about 1 minute to reflect on this question.
And if you're trying to take over one of those sticky notes, just double click on it.
And while we're responding, I saw the question, is at risk the same as 504? So that's a great question. They are different. At-risk student populations are not the same thing, although there may be some overlap with certain contexts. And 504 plans are also different than special education plans. So we'll kind of get into at risk a little bit more. So hopefully that'll clarify, at least as mud, right? Clear as mud. We'll clarify some more for you. I'm going to hop over to our responses. So every child has access to a fair education. The aid and accommodations, they need to be successful to assist all students. Holistic approach, unique learning needs. Yes, not everyone learns the same way. Amazing responses. Thank you so much. And we're going to save these too. So now we're going into our second pillar, which are the characteristics and needs, and we're going to be understanding what those are for our groups and our special populations. And as we go through these, each of the 5 has a template that looks like this, and we will make sure to get these templates to you. I don't want to sit and read, you know, just off of this to you, but understanding that special education students are a super diverse range of learners. It could impact cognitive, physical, sensory, emotional, and behavior. And the other thing that I definitely wanted to highlight on each of these is that last tag where it says learning needs. So it's important here to understand that our special education students have individualized education programs, also called IEPs, right? And these are both, they can be both accommodations and or modifications. As well as assistive technology, specialized instructional support. Often you'll find, you know, a co-teacher or a special education teacher in the classroom, as well as the general education teacher, sometimes in our co-teach classes. So that's kind of what I wanted to target on special education. We're going to move over to our gifted and talented group of students. High intellectual ability, advanced in certain areas, but also maybe not meeting expectations in certain areas too. So I wanted to make sure to highlight that. We think of our GT students as always performing at the maximum level in all areas, and that's not the case. That's a myth. Sometimes they may struggle. I don't know what that is. They may struggle in certain areas such as social emotional learning. They also perseverate and just really get invested sometimes in certain areas. And so their learning needs definitely differentiated instruction. They're gonna need areas for acceleration, specific opportunities for enrichment, maybe some mentorship, but typically a definite need in the social emotional development area. Okay, hop on through to our English learners. So these learners can come from a plethora of cultural backgrounds, right? English will not be their primary language. And so they're going to have, you know, some limitations there. Looking at their learning needs, we need to focus on the language development. You also may have heard of sheltered content instruction, specific language support services, culturally responsive teaching practices, and really allowing students to practice and develop their language needs inside of our classrooms. Students with dyslexia here, um, often they may have some difficulty with spelling, with phonics, with decoding, with being able to fluently read at a pace, right? And so their strengths are definitely varied. And to develop their learning needs, we need to ensure we've offered structured literacy instruction, phonics, multisensory approaches. Ooh, we're going to get into some assistive technology that you will find helpful inside of your classroom too.
Hey, Megan,
Yes.
just to clarify, dyslexic students are often identified not necessarily in like the system as dyslexic, but under a 504. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, that's correct. Great point. Yes. So
So
you will
504 will cover like lots of like physical needs. So like if a kid breaks his hand and can't write, like they would be put under a 504 plan, and then when it's better, he gets taken off. But dyslexic students also have a 504.
Oh, yes, that's an excellent point. You'll also find in the special education umbrella, you'll find speech sometimes as well. So yes,
And
it can get
dyslexia is moving into under the special ed umbrella as well. So they're moving
It
out of
is.
504 into special ed.
Awesome, Melissa. Thank you for that. So as you can tell, there's such an array, and as we know, because we teach students, right, and they have such a range of abilities. And so now let's move into our at-risk population. So again, just to mention, this is right here, really at many of our campuses, we work with this population of our students, right? They face so many challenges: poverty, homelessness, trauma, could be family instability, and additional risk factors, right? That can really affect their academic success. But they are resilient and determined and creative and resourceful. And so with this population of students, we want to offer wraparound services, meaning lots of different parties will get involved with supporting our at-risk students. And we'll get into that as well. So let's do a quick Jamboard as well. Who is in my classroom? Where am I the most confident as well as the least? So let's hit up our Jamboard. We are headed to, it's going to be question 3, and I'll kind of explain. So if you guys want to hop on and look at that slide, you are going to put a heart by the students that are in your class. Yep, just like that. Oh, somebody, I got you. Look, boom, baby. Excellent. Now we have the stars. I want where you feel the most confident in working with this particular special population of students. I want you to star. Where do you feel the most confident in your teaching practices? And it can be, it can be a couple, more than one. Where do you feel most confident? And then you'll notice that last hourglass, where might you feel the least confident in knowing about this special population? And that's the hourglass. Where might you, or where would you like to investigate more with this particular population? And just so you know, too, remember, we can't see who's doing what. So you will not be called out at all.
Hey, Megan, while everybody's finishing that, Kiana asked in the chat, is there a list of resources for our ESL or emergent bilingual students? I don't know.
Yes.
With that today.
Yes, my dear. We are going probably tomorrow. I'm going to put everything in a Google space, and you will have so many resources regarding all of these different special pops.
Perfect. Thanks, Megs.
Great question. Yes, thank you. Thank you for asking too, Kiana. Okay, so looking at this, maybe gifted and talented. We got a couple with dyslexia. We want to know more about special education and English learners. Excellent. So it's looking to me like we're very confident with our at-risk student population. And so this will help us when creating content for educators on what do we need to focus on. Thank you so much. So we are moving into the third pillar now. Get my screen going. So now we're going to be talking about effective strategies for support. Effective strategies for support. And so we are getting into the heart of the matter. We want to provide opportunities for all of our students in my classroom. And often it feels like a puzzle, right? And how is everything coming together? Where we want you to start. If you have not looked up your students' specific educational plans, such as accommodations, maybe they have to receive modified testing or modified curriculum supports. That's where we always start, is we need to look at what specific plans do our students have? And so diving into, again, our special education population of students, I want us to think of what we do. Teachers act as gardeners, right? We're carefully attending to the soil. We're ensuring each of our plants, regardless of the unique needs, right, has the opportunity to bloom, has the opportunity to flourish. And so in thinking along the same analogy, just as gardeners provide opportunities for students to flourish or plants to flourish, we cannot control the weather always, but we can look at the weeds and remove those, right? We need to be removing obstacles that hinder the growth of our plants. And so just as that, we're going to be working diligently to remove the barriers, right? And to provide the necessary supports so that our special education students are going to be able to thrive in that rich soil, right? The rich soil of learning inside of our classrooms. Here are some strategies. Differentiated instruction. So this includes multiple means of representation, lots of engagement opportunities, as well as different ways that our students can express to us that they are learning the content. Individualized supports, right? Where we need to develop and collaborate with lots of people to form our student individualized education plans, as well as implement their accommodations and their modifications if they receive any with fidelity. And so an idea here is to provide our students with sentence stems, interactive word walls, provide them notes in advance. You know, I was a co-teacher. I was a special education teacher and a content teacher. And sometimes it became such a power struggle between myself and the general education teacher with notes. And I'm like, our student needs a copy of the notes in advance, right? It's part of their plan. So that's why we want to make sure we're familiar with the plan. Also, different opportunities on how students can evaluate their content and make sure we're using them and we're offering them opportunities to voice what's important to them as well as choice. So different menus maybe. Maybe you've heard of Universal Design for Learning. It's called UDL. This is where we're going to provide flexible learning materials, varied instructional methods, and provide multiple means of how we're assessing our students. Positive behavior supports. This is called, and we've offered lots of training on this, how to be proactive in our classrooms when managing behavior. Provide clear expectations, also consistent expectations, remembering positive reinforcement, and the 5-to-1 rule. So 5 pieces of praise for every 1 piece of discipline. And a disclaimer here, providing choices for our students does not mean that you are changing your expectations. It's just providing another route. Also, there's going to be a link when we send this out. If you're interested in learning more about the Universal Design for Learning. So we'll send that link to you as well. So diving into gifted and talented, enrichment opportunities. So providing independent study, advanced coursework, projects, right? Project-based learning, mentorship programs. Let's collaborate with our community and tie in some experts from the field, even if it's a virtual, even if it's virtually reaching out through a Zoom like we're doing right now. Connect with external resources and opportunities to develop talents and interests. And so here's an idea. There are so many free programs, and I wanted to be sure to share these with you. Khan Academy. Who's heard of Khan Academy? I'm sure many, right? These are free, PS. There's another one called edX, and these are free online courses students can take. There's a platform called Coursera, and these are professor taught, often Ivy League professor taught, that your students can explore and expand on certain topics. There's also another platform called Skillshare, and these are master classes that your students have available to them for free. So if they're, interested in creating their own business, let's get them in a master class, right? Also, hopefully you've heard of College Board. College Board is a great resource too for you to check out. And one thing I just want to reiterate, we definitely want to reiterate this. We could go into such detail and depth with each of these 5 special populations, and I wish we had more time. We don't have a lot of time, right? So we're doing kind of overviews, and we've targeted certain pieces that hopefully you can learn about soon. Oh, this is great. The ACEs, Melissa, I actually have that in here. It's coming soon. So authentic assessment for gifted and talented, provide open-ended assessments, offer students a menu of, hey, I want to prove my learning through a project. I want to prove my learning through a presentation or a portfolio. Also looking at inquiry-based learning. So encourage high-level questioning for students, exploring complex problems, give them the ability to investigate independently within those specific areas of interest. And like we mentioned too, many of these are good for all students, right? It doesn't have to be just our GT students. So just keep that in mind too. So getting into our English learners, providing language supports, visuals are great. Graphic organizers are great. Bilingual dictionaries, simplified language, so providing culturally responsive teaching. So how can you incorporate culturally relevant materials? examples and experiences into instruction. And the reason this is vital is because they're going to link prior knowledge with new current knowledge. And there's some examples, there are millions probably of examples, but some visuals, we're talking, you know, Venn diagrams, T-charts, really focusing on the visual aspect. And an idea for this is for you to front load vocabulary and key concepts. Again, hitting up that scaffolding instruction, right, that many of you are doing inside your classroom, pulling small groups. Something to keep in mind: for every 10 minutes of lecture, stop for 2 minutes and provide student engagement. So some of us have heard of sheltered instruction or SIOP strategies. Clear explanations, providing context for your lessons and what you're talking about. Hands-on activities, language development opportunities, collaborative learning activities, peer interactions, making that learning authentic, and providing opportunities for our English learners to practice speaking, practice writing. So just a brief overview. I know we're going to dive deeper one day. Effective strategies. These are students with dyslexia. So providing explicit phonics instruction, phonological awareness, decoding. There are tons of evidence-based programs that help break down the English language. Assistive technology. So tech tools to support reading, writing, and comprehension. Here are your examples: text-to-speech software. They're free apps, right? We love Google. Speech to text apps as well. So vice versa, right? Providing audiobooks. There are also digital highlighting tools. That's fun. Accommodations and modifications. So make sure you're knowledgeable in things such as extended time, frequent breaks, modified assignments, etc. Really focusing with our dyslexic students or students who have dyslexia. Self-advocacy is crucial here. So, and it's crucial for all of our students, but help encouraging them to communicate their needs, giving them access to their appropriate accommodations and support services. For our at-risk students, we're going to focus on relationship building, right? Showing genuine care, empathizing, and respecting where they've come from, how far they've come, and where they're going, and knowing what their goals are. Strength-based approach. So we're going to build upon students' strengths, interests, and talents to provide them opportunities for success. Well, you know, and just how we like things too. Praise in public and correct in private, right? So let's apply the 2x10 strategy here. And this is a proven strategy. 2 minutes per day for 10 days in a row, providing a sense of collaboration with you and our at-risk students, talking about anything that student wishes to share. You will see an 85% improvement in the most challenging students' behavior. You will also see an impact across your entire classroom and the climate of your classroom. So spend 2 minutes a day, 10 days in a row, discussing anything, and let us know how that works for you. Yep, every 10 minutes. Stop. Well, and really, this is, let me get a little more specific here too. This is an individual-based process for our students. So you're going to talk to an individual student for 2 minutes a day. Okay, and you're going to do that 10 days in a row, and you will notice the impact, not just with those individual students, but with your classroom as a whole. We discussed wraparound services. How are we going to connect with the right people and the right programs to address these non-academic barriers for success? Also providing culturally responsive and trauma-informed practices, which we're going to get into right now in resources. So collaboration and resources. As we know, collaboration involves teamwork. It involves lots and lots of communication with an array of parties, educators, administrators, specialists, support staff. The student, please, please, please bring in the student and their family, and encourage community partners to address the needs of special populations effectively. So be ready, my friends, to show up, respond, and give feedback on student progress. So students can receive comprehensive support across these 3 domains. The first is academic, right? We're going to focus on intellectual development, their knowledge, skills, and competencies. Then we have the social emotional domain, which involves interpersonal development. We have our social skills, practice of empathy, and resilience. We also have the behavior domain. In here, you'll see the actions, the conduct, right? And really looking at the patterns of behavior in a variety of settings across not just your classroom, but really the school community. So the lunchroom, specials, right? Looking at that domain in a holistic manner. I do believe this is our final Jamboard. So number 4 on the Jamboard, we're hopping back over to the Jamboard. Who in my community, who on my campus, or who in my district can I go to for support with my special populations of students? So I want you to give specific people now. Who can you go to for additional support here? Boom. Yep. Excellent. And just in case, if you needed, if maybe you closed out. Excellent. Yep. SPED department, counselors, principal. Co-teachers, community and schools. Oh, yep. Case managers, assistant principals. Oh, yes. Collaborating with other teachers. Classroom management specialist. Oh, and my heart is happy. Family. Absolutely. Who knows their kids best? Maybe not always in the educational setting, but always reach out to your family. They can provide you a wealth of knowledge regarding their student. And who doesn't love talking about their kids, right? Excellent. Love it. Love it. Okay. And we are getting close to the end here. So resources for support, tools, materials, programs, services designed specifically for these specific populations of students. And there are a ton of resources. There are 4 types that we wanted to address with you. The educational piece, which are instructional materials, you know, assistive technology, equipment, right? Specialized curriculum. Then we have behavioral and social emotional, which could be counseling services, our BIPs or behavior intervention plans that are student specific, social skills, training programs, and peer support, other teacher support. I love that, how you mentioned that in the Jamboard too. Community, so making sure students have access to mental health services, medical services, any types of vocational training programs, recreational activities. And then we also have professional development, which we're doing today, training opportunities to expand our knowledge content, resources specifically designed for you, for educators, on how we can support our special populations most effectively. Resources for support. So TEA is a phenomenal tool. And again, you mentioned, ooh, we need tips and resources. We're going to provide you a Google area where you can kind of dive in to investigate more. TEA is a great website though. And this was just kind of what we picked off initially. These are in English and in Spanish. And so they have dyslexia, an overview of special education for families, also section 504. And this, like Melissa mentioned just a few minutes ago, so these are called the ACEs, okay? And there's a quiz that goes along with this, and I wish, again, and I'm sure Kat knows too, we could do a whole presentation on ACEs, and it's so interesting. So researchers determined there are 10 specific, they're called adverse, also known as traumatic, right? Childhood experiences, and that's where the ACEs come from, ACE. And this could be linked to a higher likelihood of how our health is later on in life. Also, the negative effects increase if our number of ACEs increased as a child. And again, it's very interesting to learn more about ACEs. This was a pretty neat website. And you can also take the ACEs quiz. Now, I did want to flag you all. This is not something that you need to give students. This is just to help you with an awareness and an understanding, especially with our at-risk students, how childhood experiences directly impact learning. And so this, you know, by finding more information out yourself, you can take that to what you can learn about your students. And we can, we'll send this link out to you also. And you know, I think I actually have, do I have access? I'll put the link in the chat too if you want to check it out. Woohoo! So, offering some additional professional development, gifted and talented 6-hour update coming soon. We wanted to highlight this series, which is our trauma series. These are courses, and some of you have already taken these. Awesome. These are courses available to you in the LMS Trauma-Informed Educator Series. So there's several courses: Understanding Trauma and the Impact of It, a Trauma-Sensitive Approach, How to Create a Trauma-Informed Classroom, and then Secondary Trauma. Oh, hey, Candy. Due to the pandemic, every student will have faced one or more ACEs, so it's a wonderful idea to learn. Yep, for sure. For sure. We've made it, team, to the last pillar, promoting equity and inclusion with our special populations. I want us to take a look here, equality versus equity. And let's just respond to this in a chat. I'll give you a second to read this. So what do we notice? And then there was even an extension on this graphic. And the next piece was removing the from students. And so how can we remove barriers? How can we remove that fence? Oh Lord, Patrick,
Patrick, you're the worst.
tall people are the best. I disagree. But yes, just thinking about where our students come from, where we want them to go, what are the barriers we can remove, and what really is equality versus equity, and what is fair for students who are coming into us with a lot more luggage, supporting those students who are not at the same level as others. Excellent. So while you're responding to that, promoting equity and inclusion. So top 3 things to know about inclusion. One thing that we wanted to go over with you is that inclusion, and I know I'm starting at the third one, but inclusion is not a legal term, right? It's not a law, but inclusion is a philosophy about students fully belonging to our classroom community and to our school community. We're just going to go backwards now. So the second thing, inclusive education does not promote lowering the standard of education. That's not what we're doing here. It may mean that our same students may be offered accommodations or modifications to support them in the learning content, but it is not lowering the standards that you set in your classrooms. And inclusive education, you know, has been around, idea has been around for many years. And for over 50 years. And it shows that children with and without disabilities do better academically, socially, and generally when they're able to participate in inclusive classrooms. And I love y'all's responses too. Giving every student the same shot at success. Fair is a 4-letter word. Life isn't fair. Yep. How can you create new opportunities? Each student need is different support, but opportunity. Experience rigor in the content. Yes, rigorous content for all. Love it.